one of those paths that if you trip up, you're going to push the schedule out beyond 5 days. That's what the critical path is. I know that's kind of, if you haven't done scheduling, it's hard to understand that. But the critical path is the quickest way to finish the project. And it's also the longest series of activities that you have to finish the project. Kind of like the weakest link in the chain is how weak the entire chain is. Well, the longest sequence of activities is the shortest time that you can finish the project. There are going to be other activities going on at the same time, but some of those are actually going to be finished and stopped before you finish this long sequence of activities. And the difference between when those other activities stop, or you've got people standing around on that leg, and the overall finishing of the longest sequence is called the float on the project. So what you've got is, again, what I'd like you to think about in terms of your projects is, you've got these work packages already on your work WBS. You can estimate them now. You're in a position now to be able to estimate them at this level. Optimistic, pessimistic, most likely. But what I'm asking you to do is just think about maybe the most likely case right now as your estimate. And then think about what are the activities that I'm going to need to do beneath those summary levels to be able to do my project, and how am I going to be able to put together or sequence those activities, and how am I going to be able to do some of them in parallel, and which ones do I need to do totally sequentially. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more on Wednesday, of how you sequence tasks and then put them into a Gantt chart in Microsoft Project. But I wanted to set this up. Your next step is to launch a spreadsheet. Put in all of your work packages and begin to think about these tasks and activities. Okay? And then begin to start to estimate how long these things could take. Then also begin to think in your spreadsheet, who is going to do these things? Okay? Get them to kind of commit to a certain estimate.
Excuse me, the timeline should be based on the pessimistic or most likely?
Well, that's a good comment.
Probably not.
It depends on how much confidence you want in your schedule. If you want 100% confidence that you're going to finish, then you base it on your pessimistic. The problem is if you give your boss the pessimistic, they'll probably tell you that they'll never allow that. So you give them the optimistic? Well, you give them the optimistic, they'll be happy when you give them that number, but then you'll never be able to finish on time. You know, and you're going to be disappointing them at the end. Usually the most likely, okay, is a 50-50 chance of finishing, generally. I mean, people will say, well, it'll probably take this much. In reality, that ends up being, yeah, 50 to 70% of the time we'll finish in that much time. Just heuristically, or as a rule of thumb, people underestimate things. Okay? That's why you want to come up with a range. That's why I'm encouraging you to think in terms of ranges now. In fact, for the estimate that we're going to look at that I did, or that I'm doing for this project that I'm working on Thursday, I gave him a range. I wouldn't give him a number. Okay, you ask, well, what number to give him? I didn't give him a number. I said about this much in terms of schedule, and I said between this and this in terms of cost. So it's important for you not to lock yourself into these things right away, when you're doing the estimate. You want to refine the estimate as you get more information. Okay, so here we were last Thursday up there in Chicago. And they make 2.3 million units of mayonnaise a day. We saw a lot of mayonnaise. Jars of mayonnaise going like this. It was real. It was interesting. I'll tell you some other stories. Those of you that were here last Wednesday met Rebecca, and this is our project. I guess our sponsor, right? The guy who's going to give us the work. So, what do we do? Start out with a concept. You've already seen this concept. Okay? Just like the Keystone XL pipeline had a kind of a flow chart, I started out with a kind of a flow chart, kind of a concept here with these icons that I actually pulled from the customer themselves. Out of their document, I pulled these icons. So these are not my icons. This is their process. And then I developed this flow chart for how things might go. This is before a WBS. This is before everything. Okay? And I said, well, how long might it take? Well, in your case, okay, we probably are looking at May, I don't know, what, May 15th or something at the end of next semester? May 2nd? Okay, so this date right here is going to be May 2nd. For me, this is going to be June 30th. So you know that that's a hard date here, and you know when you're going to start right here. Now, we're not going to start next week, unfortunately, because what they told me was they're going to go out to bids. Kind of disappointing, because I went up there and spent a lot of money, but I think we're a long way down the track of getting the project. We are competing against 2 other companies. So, but at least I know this level, and I have this kind of a concept diagram. And from this, then, those of you who were here Wednesday saw that we went and did a little presentation, and we developed this work breakdown structure. Okay? And I, plotted this out. We did this. I went through it with the customer just like we did in class on Wednesday. Those were you here. We did it exactly like that dress rehearsal, right? Put it down there, and we had somebody on the telephone from India. She was listening in, and we sent them the slide picture, and she was following along with each one of these as I put these down, and as Rebecca explained it and went through it. A tremendous communication tool this was. And then I put each of these estimates down here for each one of the groups, the high-level work package groups. So what's the next step after this? Oh, what I did was, in addition to that, as we were talking, I was talking to the customer there in Chicago. I was also talking to the customer in India on the phone, and they were saying things like, "Oh yeah, we like that, but we, this is a little bit more around this, and this is what we need to kind of consider, in this phase." So I annotated that. I marked that down on the document here. Okay, there's something here. There's something here. These are additional requirements that the customer is giving me that are part of the scope. I mean, I thought I had the scope captured. But the additional requirements that they gave me on Thursday were additional parts of the scope that I need to include in there, or else I may not win the job. And if I do put them in there because my competitors didn't bother to fly to Chicago, they're going to miss out. So I put those things on the WBS itself in order that I wouldn't miss them. As they spoke, I was writing down, and Rebecca was going through this, and I was writing down on here, and I got it all captured. Right? So what's the next step after this now? For me. After the WBS. What's the next step? after the WBS itself, the chart?
Figuring out.
Huh? Dictionary? Yeah. So I took all of this stuff and the additional requirements and the information down here, and I put it into my WBS dictionary, right? So I have here item 1.1.1.1, okay, which is a work package, understand the philosophy. And I detailed that out, and I put the estimates in here, and I put the hours that I think it's going to be in here. Okay? I developed this all out, just like you guys did, right? Just like you guys did for your WBS assignment you submitted today. Same thing. Now the next step is, how do I put it into a Gantt chart now? How do I get that next thing? Well, I need to turn this into something I can estimate. Something I can put a number on in terms of labor hours. So I need to think in terms of activities. Break these things, these work packages here down into, what do I need to do to interview the stakeholders? Well, I probably need to organize a meeting. I need to have an agenda. I need to find a room. I need to contact all of the stakeholders. Who will those stakeholders be? Well, I got some additional information on who those stakeholders would be. There would be two different groups. There's one group called the core group, and that's the 5 of us. Okay, Rebecca, myself, the customer, and the customer's boss, and then the other customer in India. That's 5. And then 7 others that'll be spread throughout the entire world in what they call these clusters, cluster of directors. So at the very least, and then the people that we're going to actually train and that we're going to create the process for. So at the very least, I've probably got about 15 to 20 stakeholders that, as a result of the meeting I had on Thursday, I put into this area right here, so that I know if I have to contact 15 people and interview them all, and say it takes, at a very least, it takes 4 hours, because I got to get a hold of them, I got to get their email, and then I've got to have a half-an-hour interview. I've got to put together a discussion guide. Okay, so 15 times 4, at the very least, that's a 60-hour task. That's how I come up with this, is being able to have this level of detail in the WBS dictionary, so that I can immediately go to saying, these are the tasks that I need to do, and this is how much time each task is probably going to take. Okay? So, that's what we did. We come up with this kind of an estimate. We come up with this kind of an estimate based on the activities. Okay, if I want to have an understanding philosophy, I'm going to kick off the project. We're going to have the alignment workshop. We're going to do the interviews. We're going to review the standards. These are the WBSs. And then to get from here to this estimate here of how many hours in a week, I have to think about the tasks involved to get to this point. So your next step is to do exactly the same thing. Extract from your WBS dictionary, and maybe even add to it a little bit more. Okay? Strictly speaking, activities and tasks are not part of the WBS dictionary. There's a next level in the scheduling. Extend that WBS dictionary that you turned in today into the task and activity level, and begin to think about how long each one of those tasks are going to be taking, maybe. And develop an estimate around each one of those. And then begin to see, how am I going to fit these tasks together? Maybe you'll put them on little post-it notes. I mean, maybe you'll have a little workshop yourselves and have a brainstorming and say, okay, well, we're going to sit around and we're going to brainstorm these tasks, and everybody take a little Post-it note and write a task down that they think, a series of tasks in your group. And then let's see how we can put these tasks together. You know, we got this task, we got this one, we got this one here, we got this one here. I'll bet we could do this one here and this one here at the same time. And then, but this one has to come before this one. And put down the estimate on that task. This is going to take about 5 hours, 5 labor hours. And I'm going to say that Garrett does this one, okay? 5 labor hours. You say it takes 5 labor hours for this task. You are the owner. This is yours. Your task, okay? Then you collect all those tasks together, and now you've got a basis for coming up with a schedule. A schedule that's realistic, a schedule that's well thought through. Now you're ready to jump right down into Microsoft Project. This is what I talked about sequencing. Pretend each one of these circles is the start and the end date of a task, and pretend this arrow here is like one of these stickers. Well, how long could it take? Well, it takes maybe 2 days for this. 2.2 days, I don't know. Again, this is getting a little bit down deep into the scheduling, and those of you who are taking the project management class will learn this, but you put the optimistic, remember we saw optimistic was 1 day, pessimistic was 4 days, and the most likely was 2 days. You put that in here, and then you can see that these are 2 different paths to get to the end. It could follow this, or it could go this, right? You can sequence these things in parallel. Sometimes you can do 4 and 5 at the same time. Do that with your tasks. Think of things in that way, okay? So, again, I told you we don't have much today. The main takeaway for today is transition that WBS dictionary to the tasks. Develop an Excel spreadsheet. Sequence those tasks out and begin to see how it is that it's going to happen over a period of time. You may need to come back and develop a concept, a flow chart, a concept diagram in order to be able to do this. Okay? But at the very least, in order to be able to adequately schedule these things, you're going to have to get this down beyond the work package level and down to the task level so you can estimate it in a spreadsheet. And then assign some group members. You know, I mean, that doesn't mean you can't switch tasks later and you can't do it, but just try to think about resourcing the project too with your group. Questions? Comments?
So the Microsoft project, it is free?
Well, I don't think so. I think it costs, for a student version, it's very inexpensive.
You could get a 60-day demo. I have a 60-day demo right now.
Did you do the self-approval?
Yeah.
Other questions? On Wednesday, what I'm going to do is actually walk through this process of the activities, putting them into Microsoft Project, developing the Microsoft Project, and then some of the features of Microsoft Project. There's some really cool features. One of them is a resource sheet where you put all your resources in, your names of your people. Another one is the reports where you show who does what when, and it lays out a calendar. I mean, it's a really, really nice application. The point is, you don't want to jump into Microsoft Project until you've done all this pre-work. Okay? Just like they say, you know, the way to get garbage out of the model is to not go through all this stuff and put garbage into it, right? So, any other comments, questions, ideas?
I made a mistake to the tomorrow's presentation will be in ERP 9, room 124. Not here. Sorry.
Okay. ERP 9, 124, IHS presentation. Okay. One other thing I'd like to mention And that is that some of you don't have an approved project charter yet. Because you may have changed your project. You better come to me with a recovery plan, because you're seriously behind schedule, right? And that's a problem. That's a real problem.
Understood.
Yeah.
How do we know if it's approved or not?
Well, if you come to me and you say you want to change your project, then you